Greetings, Earthlings. In the previous video, we went over some other solutions of counting up rectangles. Specifically, I talked about Jan's solution. Now, this video is going to be about the spirit of modern math, science, and engineering. So you may wonder, what does this broad topic have to do with the previous video? So let's kind of recap. So what happened in the last video or two was I showed you guys many ways of counting up rectangles in this diagram, and I discussed which solutions are better, what are their pros and cons, and then I showed you guys Jan's solution, a friend of mine. So there's a really powerful lesson which I mentioned at the end of last video, and this is what I want to talk about in this video. So what is the powerful lesson? So yes, there is the actual awesome math solution that was in that video, but I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. So it just got me thinking, like, what's the real lesson to be learned here aside from the mathematics? And it hit me that, it's one thing for Jan to have come up with that solution, but it's another thing for him to have shared it with me. And that just really inspired me, because I kind of want to mention a good lesson to be drawn and a bad lesson to be drawn. So like the wrong lesson to draw is, for example, I could have gotten really competitive or resentful or upset and have thought like, hey, I came up with all these great solutions, and Jan, who's just this really brilliant guy, he always blows me out of the water when it comes to math, and his solutions are always better, and I hate him and he's a jerk. So, that competitiveness pretty much, especially in modern times, has no place in math, science, and engineering. Historically, you could argue that your livelihood may have been tied. So for example, in Renaissance Italy, there were mathematicians. They were very protective of their formulas, because if other people found out, they would lose some prestige. So I can understand that. But in modern times, as Professor Erik Demaine of MIT has said as well, things have become it's become super collaborative. So the powerful lesson here, well, there's the great solution that we discussed, but the real powerful lesson is the spirit of collaboration and openness and sharing that's present in modern mathematics, science, and engineering. And that's really what I want to get across. So, I'm just going to recap. So the wrong lesson would be to think of this as a competition or trying to one-up, the other person. And, Jan is someone, like I said, I think in the previous video, he's someone I really respect, and he blows me out of the water when it comes to a lot of mathematics. But, we're not competing. We're here to help each other. So you don't have to be the best or the smartest. We're all learning from each other. So what I value most, as awesome as his solution is, I love that he shared it with me. So that is the sign of a truly wonderful mathematician, or a scientist or engineer, or a human being. So, let me give you guys a little example. Frequently, and this is courtesy of one of my heroes, Jacque Fresco, he brought this example to my attention. So frequently on playgrounds, you might see kids, and then you'll hear a kid say something like, "I bet I can run faster than you." And that's a very competitive mindset, which they no doubt picked up from their environment and their parents. Now, what's an appropriate response if a kid or somebody says, "I bet I could do something better or faster than you"? You could just say, "I bet you can. How do you manage to do it? How do you manage to run so fast? How do you manage to do it so well?" As opposed to getting resentful and saying, "Oh yeah, well I can, play basketball better than you," or "You're ugly," or something like that. The fact that someone does something better than you is great, because you can learn from them. So, good people, people that are just good at math, can be good at the skills, but truly great folks, truly great mathematicians and human beings and scientists and engineers and artists and anything else, they love to share what they've discovered. So, don't keep it a secret, because that's how I've learned, that's how all of us learn from our family, from our environments. So I really want to stress that it is this spirit of openness and collaboration. Professor Demaine also talks about how everything is getting to be multidisciplinary, and on my channel I discuss how we should be generalists, like Renaissance people, and study many disciplines and not just one. But for our purposes, the real lesson here is collaboration. and sharing. So in other words, it's a spirit of cooperation rather than competition. And that's pretty much the main thing I wanted to get across. So the goal, one of the goals when you guys are studying math and science is not just to improve your skills. I'm going to give you guys an extreme example. So an extreme example is the Nazis. So like great science, right? So they had a lot of leading scientific figures. However, when you just have science without compassion and empathy and caring about other people, or maybe a warped sense of that, things don't work out too well. So you need both. It's not just enough to know all your mathematics and science. I feel really strongly that math, science, and engineering, among any other disciplines, while a lot of us just love the math and science for curiosity's sake, that's always a great thing. You're just inspired. But there's another side to math and science which doesn't get talked about enough. And that's that they're humanistic endeavors. So they're there to help humanity in some way. Whether they're to inspire you and make you excited and curious, but also to share with your fellow human beings and to help our society progress. So, I want to encourage you guys, it's great to improve on the math or the English or whatever technical field you're interested in, whether you're into fitness, whatever, but that has to be combined with empathy or compassion and kindness, all these other important qualities. When you combine actual skills with the desire to help other human beings, then you could have a very powerful combination. And that's what I really want to get, really point you guys to, which is Jan A came up with, brilliant mind, brilliant solution. I really love his approach to the sweep idea variation with the two walls in the previous video, and I'll link that in the description. But the real thing that I love more than that is that he shared it with me, and because of that I was able to share it with you guys, and now you guys can go and share it with other folks and kind of continue this. And not everybody out there is a teacher, but if you can go and help your friend or a classmate or a family member, it's not just about learning science so you can get a good job or whatever. It's also so that you can help other folks. So it could be in your own small way, but that's what I want to point you guys' attention to, that we learned this math and science because it's just fun and for curiosity's sake. Sometimes we just have to for school, I get it, but ultimately it's a humanistic endeavor. As much as being like a doctor and directly helping people, math and science and engineering are there to help improve the world. So don't forget that compassionate and empathetic piece of the puzzle. We're not just doing math problems so you guys are brilliant folks. Being great at science without the humanity aspect is completely worthless. And not just worthless, it's harmful, as we mentioned in the Nazi example. Also, I just wanted to add that, when people are in the mindset of competition, that often comes from a place of insecurity and low self-esteem and a scarcity mindset. So for example, if I'm feeling really good about myself, then I'm not gonna feel upset if somebody, calls me a name or wants to compete or does something better. So like, if I'm having fun, let's say playing basketball, or I'm doing a math problem and I'm kind of excited, and somebody else does something even better or shoots a better shot, or, I'm not gonna be like, oh, you jerk, how come, I have to get you back at that for doing that. So just keep that in mind. By the way, I'm not looking down at folks, because growing up, I was very competitive, and that's just, you pick that up from your environment, unfortunately. So if you're competitive, that's not something that you can't change, that you can grow out of that. And part of the reason people are competitive, like I said, or a huge reason, is that you're just fearful and you have low self-esteem. So I want to make this distinction. In my experience, there are like two types of good students. You have like good students at school, and then you have great students at school. Sometimes the good students, I've noticed they're like kind of secretive about their work, and they're scared to help other students because they feel like, well, if I help somebody else, now they're gonna do well too, and then maybe I won't get the best grade in the class. Whereas the real top students, they're not scared. Like, in fact, they love sharing, helping other students, because they're not viewing it as a zero-sum game where it's like, if you do well, then I don't do well. You know, when somebody else does well, it helps everybody in the long term. So just keep that in mind. If you're very competitive, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, you're not a bad person, but just ask yourself, why are you so competitive? You know, do you secretly feel like there's a self-esteem issue? And if so, you know, there are ways to work on that. The better you feel about yourself, I feel like you're not going to want to compete with other people as much. I hope that kind of gives you guys an idea. I mean, this shouldn't be new to many of you guys. I'm sure, hopefully this is resonating, but I just really want to emphasize, because in the math series, although, you know, I talk about a lot of like different math topics, it's nice to tie things in together. So, you know, hope this was helpful. I'll see you guys in the next video.